What is up, everybody? The History Guy here. I love Hearts of Iron 4. I know many of you do as well. I also have a great interest on the subject of World War I, the Great War as it was then known, and I would love the chance to talk with all of you about that war, about the history, about what happened. And there's no better way to do that than to play through it on Hearts of Iron 4. So we're going to play the Great War mod. It's one of my favorites, and it also seems to be one of the more stable mods. A lot of the times I try to start a series in Hearts of Iron 4, we get a couple of episodes in, and something happens that causes it not to work, and we end up only maybe getting 5 or 6 episodes, and we never get to finish the story. That doesn't seem to be the case with the Great War mod. I did play the Great War in the past, all the way back when I first started this channel. I played through as Austria-Hungary. I thought this time we would go with the big boy. So we're going to take on the role of Kaiser Wilhelm II and the German Empire. So we'll play through this. We'll kind of prepare for war the best we can. But we're also going to go ahead and talk about the history of the war. We'll talk about what really happened, but also talk about what's happening here in this mod. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. We're taking over the German Empire in 1910. This is a really interesting time in world history. There are a lot of things that are happening. A lot of changes are very close and on the horizon. This is kind of the end of empires as they were. You've got the German Empire, the Hohenzollern, to rule Germany. They haven't been ruling Germany for all that long. Germany as an empire is not that old, really only about 40 years old. Kaiser Wilhelm was alive, has been alive as long as Germany's been alive, and he actually ends up living into World War II. There's actually a movie just came out about that not too long ago. The Russian Empire is in her final days. The Ottoman Empire is in the final days of its hundreds of years of existence. The Austro-Hungarian Empire is in its final days. So definitely an interesting time in history. A lot of new nations are going to be born out of the aftermath of all this. All of these empires are ruled by people who are related to each other. The king of the United Kingdom, who's King George V, is a grandson of Queen Victoria. The oldest grandchild of Queen Victoria is Kaiser Wilhelm II, whose mother was Victoria's daughter. Over here in Russia, the Tsarina, who's the wife of the Emperor of Russia, she is a granddaughter of Queen Victoria. Tsar Nicholas II, the Emperor of Russia, is also a cousin to Wilhelm II. So you get the idea. Everybody's related to each other. There are all these relationships on top of all of the things that are going on. France and Russia have a defense pact. Germany and Austria-Hungary obviously have one. And then all these other countries are kind of loosely tied into all of that as well. So here's where we are. Let's take a look first and foremost at the national focuses. It's where we really need to start. And we want to just try and decide early on what direction we're going to go. So one of the things I've learned is that no matter what you do, the war kind of ends up going the way that you expect it to. When I played as Austria-Hungary, I did everything I could to try and avoid the war happening the way that it did. I wasn't able to do that, so I don't expect I'm going to be able to do that here. So all I can really do is make sure that I'm in the strongest position possible when war does come. There's some things we can do to make that happen. Obviously, it would be great to get Italy on my side. Italy historically fought on the side of the Entente, so they fought against the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians and the Ottomans. If I could get them on my side, that would be fantastic. Getting Romania on my side would be helpful. All of those types of things. Obviously, we want to build up our infrastructure. We want to have a strong economy. We've got to have a navy that's strong enough to keep from being blockaded and keep those supplies pouring in. And then, of course, there are always the options to go down different routes. Now, there is a Franco-German friendship available to me here. I would very much love to get along with France and go to war with just the Russians if I can. I think the Russians are an animal I can take on if I don't have to also deal with the British and the French. So I may try to go down the route of democracy and see what happens. I don't know that it will prevent war, but it'll certainly make for a more interesting game. So I think we're going to do that. So we'll start with political effort. That's going to give me 120 political power right off the bat. And then we'll kind of go from there. We also have a lot of research that can be done. And I don't really need to worry too much about the military right now. In fact, there's not a lot I can do until I get to 1914. So we're going to worry about industry. We're going to do everything we can to build up the infrastructure. Things like oil production, construction speed will be very helpful. Over here in engineering, we've got some things we can do with our research rate, and we definitely want to do that. These are all things that happen relatively quickly, too. Beyond that, though, naval doctrines are things that will come later on. Whatever I can do to build up my navy will be good because it does take time to build those ships. But again, 1914 is really the first chance we're going to get to start focusing on the military. So in the meantime, we really can only focus on industry and on things like doctrines. So we're definitely going to want to focus on land doctrine as much as possible. Cult of the offensive was the primary doctrine of the day, and we'll talk about that more as we get along into the game. Looking at our current production, we do have a number of dreadnoughts that are currently under production, and these two are well on their way to being completed. Then we've got a number of others as well. So we'll allow those all to go ahead and continue. In fact, there's a huge navy. There was a big kind of naval arms race between primarily the Germans and the UK at that time. The Germans were never going to be able to successfully keep up with that, but they did a pretty good job of it. In the meantime, I think we're going to mostly focus on infantry equipment right now with what production we do have, and just try to get production of some infantry divisions, which we don't have any in basic training right now. I'm not going to focus real heavily on building up my military just yet. That time's going to come because I just don't want to pour a bunch of resources into production of equipment that's going to very quickly become outdated. So we'll have to build our army into a couple of fronts here. We're obviously going to have to deal with trade. Looks like chromium's our primary concern right now. I'm going to trade with Greece for that. I want to try and avoid trading with folks that could potentially become major enemies for me down the road. We do have some, these dreadnoughts are already outdated, so it kind of stinks that we're pouring things into that, but they're halfway built already, so it's stupid to not continue building that. The other thing we can look at, of course, are where we can add things in our political advisors. And since we're going down the route of democracy, it probably makes sense to choose accordingly with that. Now, we've got a really good stability right now, so I don't think I need to do this. I'm going to go ahead and pick this silent workhorse because it's going to give me a 15% political power gain bonus, which over time is really going to add up. We've got free civilian factories, and I think we're going to actually build more civilian factories. I want to just ramp up the economy as much as humanly possible early in the game. And beyond that, I think we're pretty much ready to go. We'll probably see some events firing early on. And as we go along, as we get closer to 1914, we'll talk about some of the other events that were unfolding at that time. So right away, of course, we have the death of Edward VII, who was the son of Queen Victoria. Didn't rule very long. His mother was on the throne for so long, from 1840 all the way up to 1901, that much like Prince Charles, he had to bide his time. He was known as Bertie during his life. He was named after his father, Albert. And so he finally came to the throne as Edward VII, the first Edward on the throne, and since all the way back when Henry VIII's very young son came to the throne in the middle of the 16th century. So we also saw the revolt down there in Albania. It really was a powder keg down here in the Balkans at this time. There were wars that happened between some of the Balkan states and the Ottoman Empire, which the Ottoman Empire by this point was very weak, the weakest it had ever been. It had some really inept rulers at that time. And South African Union has been formed. So some territory was changing hands here. And all of this, you can see there, Austria-Hungary just gobbled up Bosnia. And that's only going to make things worse. This is where the seeds of World War I really end up happening, is right here with Serbia and Austria-Hungary. Of course, most people know about the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, but there was a lot more than just that was really at play there. So we've got some decisions we can make, but really nothing I want to spend my my points on just right now. All right, there's the completion of political effort. So now we're going to go ahead and contest the Kaiser's authority, but we can't do, never mind, we can't do that until 1916. So again, you see the limitations that are placed on us as far as being able to avoid the war. You can go with reinforce the Kaiser's authority now, but you can't contest the Kaiser's authority until well after the war has begun. So instead, we've got to go and look at other options. Industrial effort obviously is a great place to start. We're going to get infrastructure, we're going to get additional resources, but a lot of these are limited. See, January 1st, 1911 before we can do that. So there's so many limitations on what you're able to do early on in this game. Looking here, though, I really do want to try and get Italy as much on our side as possible. So let's go ahead and try renew the Triple Alliance. We're also going to continue with our research here. The Korean Empire, a Japanese puppet state since the assassination of Queen Min in 1895, just signed a treaty with the Japanese government that resulted in full annexation. That won't make the Russians too happy. A lot of conflict over there. We've got our first civilian factories finished producing, so we're going to continue to add some more of those. In the meantime, I gotta get my forces organized here. We've got a bunch of available decisions now, but I think first I'd rather spend those points on another political advisor. There's nothing really we can do to go down the route of democracy on our own, unfortunately. So I'm just going to look at some of these other options. Conscription options, really not a lot. So again, we're very, very limited early in the game as far as the direction we can go with this. So in the meantime, I think we'll go ahead and ban fascism, but let's see first if that's even a concern. We're 80% authoritarian. The fascists are only at 8%. Erich Ludendorff is the leader there. He's going to be one of the prominent generals for the Germans in all of this. So I guess, again, really not a lot of great options right now. So I guess we'll sit tight for now. The Kingdom of Montenegro has been proclaimed. So there's another one of those little things that happens that's just going to ramp up the tension down here. No world tension to speak of. We're into February of 1910. Things are moving along pretty quickly. I'm starting to organize my army. I've still got some central divisions to assign, but we have a pretty decent force already. I've just made them into a Western theater and an Eastern theater, and we'll just continue to assign some of these folks. The Western theater right now is under the command of General von der Marwitz, and General von Francois is over here as well in charge of those armies. But our overall, I thought we had created one, but I guess we got to redo that for some reason. Army Group 2 is going to be under Field Marshal von Galwitz, and we'll get them sorted and everything. But we just finished the Renew Triple Alliance national focus. Now we've got to look at what we want to do here. We've got the Deutsche Ostafrika, which is one of our colonies down in southern Africa. Honestly, I'm not going to worry about that all that much. We've got the Prepare for War all the way down here into the Schlieffen Plan, which can't happen until 1915. So we're going to go ahead and support Italy. One of the main reasons why Italy chose to go on the side of the Entente is that there was this disputed territory right in here that both nations claimed, but that Austria-Hungary refused to give to Italy. I think had Austria-Hungary done that and given up this territory, Italy probably jumps in on the side of the Triple Alliance instead, but they didn't do that. So the Central Powers is usually how they're known. So that's what ended up happening there. All right, so we continue to pump out the civilian factories. I'm going to go ahead and start ramping up production of a few more naval bases, naval dockyards, so we can continue building up the Navy. We're going to need that to be able to keep the British off our heels and to protect against naval invasion when war does finally come. And I'm still in the process of assigning all of my divisions to the various armies. I've got a total of 5 armies, 2 on the Western Front, 3 in the Eastern Theater. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with all of that just yet. The other thing we're going to continue doing is continue to work on these doctrines, because unlike everything else, doctrines don't have a limit as far as the year goes. When we're trying to research things ahead of time, there's this big penalty to how quickly we can do that research. Doctrines don't suffer from that, and doctrines take a long time anyway, so it's a much more effective use of my early research to do that. We've got a revolution in Mexico. Mexico declared war on Mexico. Some of the earliest experience that people like future General George Patton got were fighting in Mexico. Pancho Villa, who was a Mexican rebel, was kind of raiding across the border into the United States, and so people like Patton were sent down there to deal with that, and there's some incredible stories about Patton's experience there. Patton was also an Olympic athlete, and there was actually some controversy. He competed in the 1912 Olympics, and he actually probably would have medaled, except that he argued that in one pistol shooting competition, he had actually, 2 of his bullets had gone through the same hole, and they ruled that one of them had missed completely, and because of that, he ended up, I think, finishing 5th place in that event. So we've chosen the Support Italy national focus. Now we're going down here to, we've got send German advisors, and what this is going to do, they're going to be warmly received by Italy and Austria-Hungary and further our relations with both nations while costing Germany little, but finding men worthy of the task and putting them on a train out. So anything we can do to build things up with Italy is going to, I think, pay dividends later on down the road. So here are my current research projects. Improved hand tools is going to help with my production efficiency cap, which allows you to be a little bit more efficient in your production. Field artillery upgrade, which is going to give some bonuses to artillery, where that's a 1910 technology. High Seas Fleet is a naval doctrine, which is going to give me some organization bonuses to destroyer and battleship, as well as capital ship armor. And then entrenching battalions, which is a land doctrine. Bonuses to soft attack, organization, entrenchment speed, and max entrenchment, which are going to be key, especially if I end up with 2 fronts. So here we've got mining, which is a big resource gain efficiency. Oil production we'll probably get to at some point, but some of these other ones are not going to be able to be researched for a little while. Trench level 2, we'll get to that, but we don't need to worry about that yet because we're not at war. We're in February 1911 now. We'll definitely get through the first couple of years in this episode. We're sending German advisors to Italy, and now we have reached the place where we can't do anything more on this tree. Time limits abound. So for now, we're going to start focusing on what we can do elsewhere. And one of those places is infrastructure effort. So we can get some bonuses to infrastructure. Beyond that, we won't be able to do these. Well, actually, we can. We're past January 1911. So we'll be able to do construction effort, get an extra civilian factory, get an extra military factory, get 2 extra dockyards. I should be in pretty good shape as far as dockyards go at that point. Maybe we start focusing then on our air power, and we'll kind of go from there. Not a lot happening in terms of world events right now. We're still a little ways off from those things coming to fruition. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I've actually been full with fuel for a while now. I'm going to build some fuel silos because I'm just thinking ahead to the possibilities that oil might become hard to come by. So anything I can do to build some of those up, and they're relatively cheap to build. They don't cost a lot to do. So I can do that, and that way I can stockpile a whole lot more fuel. We're going to continue working on the naval doctrines. We'll keep a tree, kind of a thread of research, doing those doctrines for as long as I possibly can until other things open up. All right, Machu Picchu uncovered. Doesn't really affect me in any way, shape, or form, but in the meantime, we have a new national focus that we can go to, and I think we're going to go to dockyard expansion. We're going to continue to build up the Navy. I've started organizing the Navy into some fleets. We've got 2 main fleets right now, both here in Schleswig-Holstein. Both made up of, at the moment, or ideally made up of 10 battleships, 10 heavy cruisers, 15 light cruisers, and 30 destroyers. I'm going to have to do some research and figure out what the best makeup would be of that, but obviously I don't have enough heavy cruisers to populate those. We've got an abundance of battleships. I've got an additional 8 over here. Now we've got some more ships over here as well, and I can kind of look through those and figure out exactly how to organize these into fleets that make the most sense for what my needs are. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm put my main armies up here in Germany on a state of doing maneuvers, so we can start building up their experience and also get myself some army experience points that I can use to make some changes to my divisions and get them a little more optimal for what I would like. In the meantime, we'll continue to keep 4 infantry divisions training at all time. That's not a lot, and it'll probably go up at some point, but for now, it works. And I should have enough excess equipment to where doing these training exercises shouldn't be a problem to replace the lost equipment there. So the only thing that's really causing any world tension right now, it's about 5%, is France's Agadir crisis. Now, historically, what this was kind of a brief international crisis that had to do with Morocco. So let's go ahead and take a look down here, Morocco. And what was going on was that there was a little bit of conflict between the Germans and the French. And this was kind of one of many things that were causing tension between the two nations. And of course, the British got involved. And it was about France trying to expand, but Germany basically just wanted to be bought off to turn the other way. And Germany actually sent a gunboat, kind of stirred up some nationalism, kind of talked a big game, and France takes over Morocco as a protectorate in exchange for some territorial concessions to the Germans down here in the French Congo. So down in this area, so giving up a little bit more land. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen in this case. I haven't gotten any notifications about how that's going to happen for me, or whether or not I will have a personal decision to make in that, but I don't at the moment have any decisions. Okay, so here is the concession that we were just talking about. As the Agadir crisis begins to boil over, the French have come to us with a proposition. German merchants can stay in Morocco, and we get part of the French Congo in exchange for recognizing French control over the region. The territory is not particularly useful land by any means, but it would be a good way to save face without a declaration of war. Of course, if you want the territory so bad, mein Kaiser, we could always fight for it. Now, I feel like the longer we wait to go to war, the better situation I'm going to be in. That said, I could trigger the Schlieffen Plan right now and go to war. So this is a tough decision, and I'm not entirely sure where I want to go with it. All right, because I like to change things up, let's go for war over some useless territory in Morocco. All right, Schlieffen Plan. So let's talk about this. The Schlieffen Plan was kind of the plan that had been put into place, and the idea was this. Germany was prepared for a two-front war, Russia and France, who were allies. What they figured was this. They figured Russia is a big country. They've got a lot of ground to cover. It's going to take them a while to mobilize their forces. So what the plan entailed was taking France out quickly by going around this fortified border between Germany and France, going through Belgium, taking out France quickly, knocking them out of the war, and then rushing all their troops east to be there in time to deal with the Russians. Of course, that plan did not work out the way they wanted to in historical terms, but let's take a look at what we've got here. We've tried negotiations with France to keep them out of war between our alliance and the Russians, but such actions have failed. The only response is a preemptive strike. The Schlieffen Plan condones an attack through Belgium, though this would be relieved if we additionally invaded through the Netherlands. The United Kingdom nominally backs Belgium. However, surely those cowards won't actually declare war on us in case of invasion. What should we do? Now, that's the other tricky part. The UK was kind of iffy on war. And it was really only Germany attacking through Belgium that brought the UK off the fence and into the fight. Who knows what would have happened? I think UK probably would have eventually felt compelled to go to war, but they wouldn't have come right away, and it probably would have given time to take out France had they not gone through Belgium. So what shall we do here? We can declare war on Belgium, and we can get the Schlieffen Plan, execute the 1905 Schlieffen Plan. And of course, the problem is that's gonna bring the UK into the war. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and choose the Schlieffen Plan. We're gonna do the one that doesn't bring the Netherlands into the war. We're only gonna focus on the Schlieffen Plan, which is a little less risky, I think. It seems that's the case. The German Empire declared war on Belgium. Now the dominoes all begin to fall. We're going to slow things down for the time being because there's a lot that we've got to deal with now. Obviously, I really should have stopped my maneuvers before I did all that. But now, of course, since we've declared war on Belgium, we've got to extend this Western Theater line, and I haven't done that. So let's go ahead and get these 8 divisions up here by Liège, and we're also going to go ahead and see if, yeah, we've got 4 more we can hurl into the abyss real quickly here. So we'll get them, and they'll load up on some trains and get over there in plenty of time, I'm sure. In the meantime, let's take a look. So far, it's just Germany and Austria-Hungary with Belgium and Luxembourg. That's very quickly going to change. Let's see. Civilian factories. We'll keep going with those for a little bit longer before we switch over to military. Now, we've got to use some of these government points to start beefing things up a little bit. Military high command. Entrenchment, capital ships, entrenchment. We're going to have to deal with our Navy, too. There's a lot we've got to kind of start working on right away. Army logistics, division attrition reduction. That'll be helpful. Now, we still can't go to war economy. We don't need a higher conscription law yet either. So, all right, let's go ahead. Here we go. Now we're going to start seeing all of these things unfold. The UK's in, and with them, all of their friends. They're the Russians. So now you can see, even with all of the Entente powers into this fight, we've still got the field and manpower edge on our side. What we don't have on our side is industry. There's obviously a lot more industry. So maybe it was better that we started this early. The only thing I don't have are divisions up here. So we're trying to get those into position. Let's go ahead and look east as well. It looks like the Russians don't have a lot there, but then again, neither do I. So I feel like probably the way to go here is just to sit tight and allow him to attack me. I don't really have much in the way of any kind of air power so far. It's only 1911. So what if, looking at construction, what can we do as far as entrenchment goes? We don't have the technology for trenches yet. So, all right. So pretty much the only thing we can do is really just kind of sit tight and wait for him to come at me and see how that all goes. It doesn't look like Russia's really in a hurry to attack so far. Now let's look and see where those numbers are. Now he's got me. It's going to be more difficult at this point. So fighting a defensive fight to start, I think, is probably the way to go while we try to make our way in over there. Let's see if we offer our attack plan here. What does it tell me as far as the odds of success on that? Oh yeah, we're still calling enemies into action here. No, I don't want to do that. You can see there, division still preparing, the enemy's fortified. Luxembourg joined the Entente. No surprises in any of that. I want to get these divisions up here to stem the tide. Looks like they're pushing out from Belgium a little bit. New Zealand, yeah. So no losses so far on my side. Definitely a big numerical edge to the enemy now. So we're definitely going to have to ramp up the number of divisions that we're producing. And I've got a lot of infantry equipment available to me so I can rush a bunch more infantry divisions to the field quickly. And I've got the manpower for that as well. All right, so now I think we've probably got what we need to start kind of jumping out on him over here. Let's see what happens with that. I want to push forward and attack because I don't think he's entrenched here. This is a good spot to do this. Oh yeah, we're going to be calling enemies for a while, I'm afraid. Let's look out to the east. So, oh, the Mona Lisa has been stolen. I was actually just talking about that this morning. Looks like the Austro-Hungarians are attacking, so I'm probably going to be forced to do the same just to relieve the pressure on them. So let's see if we can shorten this front a little bit by building out our offensive line to here. And I don't know what all that's going to mean, but it's certainly worth a try. Oh yeah, that looks like it's going to work. I want to slow things down a little bit. So far, so good. We're only gonna fight where we know we've got an advantage because of the disadvantage in manpower. Oh yeah, we've still got these divisions down here in Africa. Honestly, I'm not even worried about it. I'd rather run those divisions back up here to help out. In the meantime, oil is certainly a concern, and if I start operating my fleets, we're going to have an issue, I think, really quickly with oil. But I do want to go ahead and get my fleets out into the water. So let's see what we can come up with there. All right, so for now, I'm going to send one fleet to start patrolling. And it looks like they're operating at suboptimal fuel efficiency. So we may have some issues there. I wonder if there's a place that we can trade for oil effectively. Let's see who's available. Romania, that's probably our best bet right now. So let's see what we can do as far as trading for oil with them. Let's see how that affects our supply. Looks like supply is still going up, so that's good. Now we'll see what happens with that fleet if we run into any issues. All right, so France is attacking across the border here, and it looks like they may have at least some temporary success with that. We've got to get some of these divisions trained. We can't get them into the field until they're, I think, okay, so December 1911 is when they're fully trained, but we don't need to wait that long. In the meantime, struggling there on that border. Things are going really well, for the most part, against the Russians. We can see overall casualties pretty light thus far. That's obviously going to change a great deal as we move along. But they've definitely got a significant manpower advantage on us right now, but we're going to try to slow that down as quickly as possible. All right, we're starting to have a little trouble here now. All right, so things are going pretty well on the front with France, where France is attacking. We're holding them off pretty good with small numbers of divisions. A little less success trying to attack into Belgium. Things are pretty static there. And we're going to go ahead and initiate some war propaganda to get ourselves a little bit of weekly war support. I've got a lot of points available in political power right now that I may as well be using. So that's where we're at. I do have one fleet just patrolling right now, although not entirely successful in that, but I'm also convoy raiding here in the channel, and that does seem to be fairly successful. I'm also trading for enough oil that we're staying pretty even on the oil right now. So here's our first convoy raider battle results. Oh, this is actually in a place where he's raiding on me. He's got 16 subs and he sank one. That's not a huge deal. That he's sinking one. It looks like the Austro-Hungarians not doing real great. We are trying to push towards Warsaw. Looks like right now, again, things pretty static. Loss is pretty low so far, but favoring me a little bit. Let's see if we can get these new. Not quite yet. We need, I think, to get up to 20% training to be able to get them into the field. Okay, so two things here. Number one, these units have gotten to 20%, so we can get 4 new divisions in the field. The others aren't far behind. That's not where I wanted to go. The others are right here, and we're going to go ahead and assign them to the Western Theater, where I feel like I've got a little bit more of a need. They're going to go right up here on the line with Belgium. The other thing is looking at casualties. They're they're a little better than 2 to 1 right now, which is good because he outnumbers me by about 50 to 60%. So as we rush these divisions into the field, hopefully we can start closing that gap a little bit. Let's see what happens when we get these next ones. We'll probably take this down a little bit longer, and then we'll wrap this first episode up. I will be very curious to get your thoughts as far as strategy, plans, ideas, how you think I should go about this. Our Hungarian and Austrian friends are making some progress pushing up north. Hopefully we can maybe encircle these Russian forces. The only trouble with going to war this early, of course, is that it's that much longer before we get to the place that the Russians have a civil war. We lost one more convoy. That's really pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. What I'd really like to see is a major naval action. I'm just not sure we're going to get it. All right, this is big. Get a bunch more divisions. Got to focus on getting the support equipment and things like that taken care of, but we're not going to quite assign all of them to this army. We'll get a few of them placed elsewhere. We'll get a 4th army going here, but I'll figure all that out, and then we'll rush them to the front and see if we can make a push into Belgium. All right, we've got our first advance into the Russian territory, inching closer toward Warsaw. I hear the numbers now. We've lost 22,000. We've inflicted 40,000. So the numbers are starting to climb. You can see I've still got 1.5 million in available manpower, but I've got a lot more I can do with the conscription plans, things like that. So there's a long way I can go with that. I'm pretty content to let France just continue to hurl their forces, at least one Russian division as well, at me over here and just let them lose all kinds of men. I really need to stop attacking here and just kind of get my forces to hold where they are. Just forget these attacks for now and just let the French just bloody themselves until they can't anymore against my forces. All right, I've rushed some more divisions into the field. We've got another almost full army heading to the eastern front. We're just going to hold the line against the French. We're basically doing the reverse Schlieffen Plan is what we're doing. We're going to hold against the French and the British, although that may change once the Brits start getting a decent amount of units into the fight, which I'm sure they don't have yet. But for now, we're holding the line and we're pushing against the Russians. If I can solidify this, if I can get in behind them here and isolate all of these Russian divisions, that will really make a difference. And then we vastly shorten this front line, and it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to contain the Russians and maybe push through Ukraine, take Minsk, take Kiev, and really have something to hang on to here. We've got some naval convoy raider results. We lost 6 convoys that time. So that's a little bit more of an issue. I think we're going to have to get a little more forceful with the Navy here and trying to deal with the British Navy. All right, we've got our first major naval battle, the Battle of the Eastern North Sea. Let's take a look at the results. So it looks like what we have here are 8 sunken British submarines, some coastal submarines, and it was a pretty significant naval force that we took in. So that's our first victory. We do have some large ships on low strength. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to give them a repair. Let's see. We'll allow automatic split off so they can allow those ships that need to, in this case, the Scharnhorst, the Gneisenau, are allowed to go break off and get the repairs that they need. So far so good. Another naval battle here. Ooh, boy. Now, this is a completely different story. A major defeat against a huge British force. We lost 10 battleships, 13 light cruisers, and 27 destroyers. We killed 23 of his destroyers, 3 light cruisers, 5 submarines. You can see the massive size of that surface fleet that we went up against. Wow, that was absolutely brutal. So we're going to wrap it up right there. That's a good place to stop, I think. It's been pretty good news overall until that point, but let me know your thoughts. Use that comment section below. Give me your tips, your ideas, your questions that you may have about this. We're going to do this series every other day until it's complete. So I look forward to your feedback on all of that, and we'll see you again soon.